I'm Helen Bartle, the Senior Advisor for Audience Development and Capability Building at Creative New Zealand, and I'm thrilled to be offering this as part of the Optimised video series led by the Audience Connection. Today's conversation starter is going to help arts organisations learn how to make the best use of channels, and today we're covering the topic of going mobile. And here to interview our panellists is Vicky Press-Hill, who's Director of the Audience Connection.
Thanks, Helen. It's exciting to be here on our first conversation starter and to have panellists here from New Plymouth, Wellington and Auckland. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to the panellists to introduce themselves, starting with you, Candice.
Hi everyone, I am Candice and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at Chamber Music New Zealand.
Oh, and now, thank you, Candice, and now I'll ask you to introduce yourself, Stuart.
Good morning. I'm Stuart Angel, the Director of Business Partnerships and Marketing at the Auckland Philharmonia Orchestra.
Thanks, Stuart. And now over to you, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Brown. I'm the Venue Manager for the Taranaki Arts Festival Trust, based at the TSB Showplace here in New Plymouth.
Thanks. I'd also like to thank our Technical Director, Brett Premack, who's here in the background from Tucson, Arizona, to help support us. So this is a really important topic for us to get started with our conversation starters. Google have recently announced that from April 21st, its mobile ranking algorithm will label your site as mobile friendly or not, and also it will use that to determine how your site ranks. And the results of our own benchmarking program, Optimizer, have also shown the growth of mobile. A very big rise in the use of mobile devices to visit arts websites. So now we're looking at 25% or more of visitors to arts websites in our sector coming from mobile devices, from tablet or phone. And this 18 months ago was just 15%, so that's a big change. Some of our local organisations are up around 40% of mobile visits. And every single participant in our benchmarking program has seen a big growth in mobile, yet only just over a third of our arts organisations in our sector have gone mobile responsive. So it's a critical issue. It's certainly aligning with a worldwide trend which is supporting other local arts research, isn't it, Helen?
Yes, it certainly is, and also the audience atlas data that Creative New Zealand has recently commissioned shows that increasingly people are going online to plan and share their visit. And so it's really important that an organisation's website is not only enticing potential visitors, but it's also building deeper relationships. And the growth in mobile is allowing greater access to these organisations anywhere, anytime.
So I'd like to ask our panellists, what have you been noticing about your audience's use of mobile over the last year or so? Candice, what have you been seeing?
Well, I guess the first thing to say is that Chamber Music New Zealand has had a mobile responsive site since October 2013, and another thing to note is that we do know that our audiences still prefer to purchase tickets in person and over the phone. However, having said that, what we've really been noticing about our audience's use of mobile over the last year is that although the proportion of our mobile and tablet users is still smaller than our desktop users, it's grown considerably. So in 2013 it was 17%, and now in 2014 it was up to 27% of the total proportion. And fitting with this, the increase in traffic to our site has actually solely come from mobile and tablet. So it's increased in mobile by 45% and with tablets by 32%, whereas desktops pretty much not increased at all. It's been maybe, in fact, I think it's been about -2% growth. So that's really what we've noticed.
Sure. And what have you noticed, Stuart?
Okay, well, first of all, taking a step back, I really would like to acknowledge that it was the development of our digital strategy with you, Vicky, and Helen through Creative New Zealand that really focused our attention on our need for a mobile optimised website in order to gain more interaction with our audience and their technology habits today. So I really can't recommend the opportunity enough for those of you who can take part in this. But making use of Google Analytics, look, we've really easily tracked the changing landscape of how our audiences have gone mobile over recent years. In 2010, over 98% of visits to our website were from a desktop. By 2012, this had reduced to just 88% desktop and over 12% mobile. But by 2014, we'd had a major shift in usage to 32% of visits to our website were through a mobile device. And we're constantly still increasing growth, should I say, in desktop and mobile. 2015 is already showing positive growth, with figures sitting around the 35% mark. We're expecting this to plateau in the next couple of years, but this gives us really important evidence to validate the importance of the investment in this area. Just as a little aside as well, is what we've really noticed is a massive growth in Apple products with our website users from the iPad, and in particular the iPhone, as the leading piece of mobile technology used to access the APO website, and this is by a long, long way.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Stuart. Have you been noticing a similar trend, Megan?
Yeah, we absolutely have been. What we've been noticing about our audience use of mobile is a definite shift from desktop and an increase in mobiles and tablets. And whilst it's not been overly dramatic, it's certainly been really quite steady. In terms of percentages, we've seen a decrease in the last year of 12% from our desktop users, and that's reflected in an increase of 8.5% on mobile and 4% on tablets. So overall, over the course of the last 12 months, we're seeing a shift from 18 to 31% in those people who are accessing our site via their mobile devices, which is, fairly steady and significant for us in terms of, representing a real need for a mobile responsive website. And we've got no doubt that this steady increase that we're seeing is something that's going to continue.
Thanks, Megan. I'd like to ask each of you how you have been responding to this move to use of mobile by your audiences. What have you been doing at Chamber Music New Zealand, Candice?
Well, the first thing we did is we responded by making going responsive a priority, as we now have a responsive site. So we were looking to redevelop our site in 2013, and in seeing this trend happen across the industry and worldwide, we knew it was a priority and we made it one. And it was a really good time, because at that time, responsive design versus just mobile optimized separate sites was becoming more and more the norm and a more commonplace. So we were able to go with a responsive site. That means that it adjusts to different size screens and resolutions, whether it's tablet or mobile device, with the one site, and that's really good. And that kind of backs up what Stuart was saying in terms of the shift happening from tablet versus iPhone versus different products. So that's been really, really good. And for us, the other thing was just really being aware of the audience journey and what other people in the industry were doing, because our audiences are going from responsive social media sites to our website and then to ticketing sites, and more of these ticketing sites are becoming responsive, and so we didn't want to be the only kink in that armor and they turn up on our site and find that we're not mobile optimized. So it was really important to make it a streamlined journey from the very start to the end of the purchase process.
That's a really great point, Candice. How have you been responding over at the APO, Stuart, to this trend?
Well, APO has responded to this trend by ensuring that our cross-organisational digital strategy has a clear pathway of development with appropriate and achievable targets in going mobile. And this was mainly to ensure that our growth is strategic rather than organic, which I have to say it has tended to be in the area of digital in the past. And one of the first stages of this was to look at process. We looked at different types of mobile sites and what would work best for us and what we could achieve within budget. Research. We talked to other people and organisations that have been through the process and looking at what can we learn from them to make the process easier and more cost-effective for the APO. In 2014, we moved to a responsive mobile website instead of a desktop site that resized. And I do believe that it's the simplicity and focus of our site that's enabled a growth in our mobile activity, as well as a customer expectation that they were able to engage with us through a mobile platform. Today, people just expect to, and we were going to be letting them down if they couldn't.
Thanks, Stuart. So Megan, so in New Plymouth, how have you been responding?
Well, our number one key objective was to design a new website and make sure that that new website was mobile responsive. Like Stuart, we were actually participants in Creative New Zealand's digital strategy initiative back in 2013 as well. And so one of the key objectives, having done that workshop, was actually to create a mobile responsive site. And it came at a really good time for our venue, because we were actually planning on changing our website, the brand, the design, the look and feel of it. So we were able to incorporate those changes with the optimization to that as well. And interestingly, our web developers actually said it was cheaper and easier for them to do that and build it all from scratch, rather than try and adapt our existing site to become mobile optimized. So that worked really well for us.
That's great. So as you've become, I'd like to ask each of you, as you've become mobile responsive and responded to this mobile trend, what are some of the discoveries you've made along the way that you'd like to share with others who are facing this journey? Candice, what have you come across on this journey yourself?
Well, I mean, there's still lots that we want to learn about and discover about our audiences in terms of mobile trends and how they're using our site, and we're going through that process. But certainly in terms of internal learnings, one of the big things we discovered, which seems obvious once you get to the end of it, is that just because something works on you know, a desktop in terms of design and journey doesn't mean it's going to work on mobile or tablet. So that's, you know, really important. You know, fancy animations or rollover or, you know, drop-down menus and things like that actually just end up getting in the way of the user journey on mobile. So really thinking about that journey and what you want to achieve when someone's on mobile was important, which is great to learn. And then fitting, sort of going along with that is now that we have a responsive design, I've got multiple platforms that I need to be, devices that I need to be testing our site on, and to be honest, I just don't do that enough, and it's something I really need to focus on doing. So I spend a lot of time on our desktop site, but of course there's a large percentage of our audience viewing our site on other platforms, and I need to make sure that it's continuing to work and that we're continuing to improve that design. So that's a big learning curve.
I think that's a really good point about really thinking about that user journey and user experience on the mobile devices and the context in which they're viewing your content. And I think it's not just about websites. Obviously, it's about email and social, because so many emails are now opened on a mobile device, and so many social media platforms are accessed from mobile. So it's just thinking mobile across all of those channels that you have, really. So, Stuart, share with us some of the learnings that you've had and discoveries you've had along the way.
Yeah, we're just following on from that, actually, Vicky. Along the way that we've discovered that creating a focus around the digital strategy has increased awareness of the platforms involved in digital, and getting people to realise that this is just, it's so much more than the website. And this now is across our whole organisation from board down, so that's been a really useful learning process. Our stakeholders want to get to know us. You know, we've now engaged many of the staff and orchestra in the use of our Instagram account, and this gives a more real life and day in the life feel of the personalities to our audiences. You know, because we can't offer the finished product before the actual concert, but what we can do is give them access to the artist beforehand to help take them on the journey with us. You know, the person behind the instrument, not just the shots linked to the rehearsals, but they love to see our musicians going out for a coffee in the break or going out afterwards for dinner in their favourite restaurant and discovering where their favourite restaurant is. So, you know, looking at ways that we can actually engage and tell the journey more. We've also discovered that Facebook posts don't sell tickets for us, but Facebook ads do. For the APO, Facebook is all around engagement rather than selling, and within that engagement for us, its video content is absolute supreme and God. And then the discovery of the agility that we have through the use of mobile and social media is now reflecting in the engagement that we receive from others who have an overlap in the circle of friends within our community. So people, they're looking, they're seeing, and they're sharing. And one of the best examples of that for me is recently in the launch of our new music director. Classic FM in the UK, which is the largest independent radio station in Europe, picked up this story, they shared, they commented, and this was put out amongst several million of their followers and listeners, which for us was absolutely priceless.
Mm. I'm glad you raised the issue of video, because that is obviously such an important type of content now for all of us, and mobile is making video so accessible both in terms of its consumption and its creation. And also your mention of agility you know, really gets me thinking about that immediacy that we now have with mobile for people to react and for us to deliver content out to them right in that moment of the experience. So at all points of that audience journey, really. Yeah. So Megan, what have some of your discoveries been?
Well, interestingly, when we've been looking at our analytics and the statistics since we actually developed the mobile responsive site, we're actually finding, and perhaps worryingly so, that people are spending less time on our website. But we think a good explanation for that is that now that our site is far easier to navigate and easy to find what people are looking for, that's the reason why they're spending less time on the site. But it's really too early to definitely say whether the pattern's there for that reason. Other things that we're noticing, like Stuart said about the engaging content, we're finding that the audience members who are communicating with us digitally are really fast-paced. They want information now and they want it at their fingertips. But they're also looking for engaging content, and it's that kind of behind-the-scenes real-life story that, similar to the others, that we're really needing to create. And I think the biggest challenge for us is that predominantly we are a venue to hire. So we are reliant on promoters and hirers giving us content for us to be able to use across these channels. And so a challenge for us going forward is actually working with them to give us the content we need and also trying to create some content for ourselves.
It's interesting, Megan, that you raised those sort of engagement statistics, those engagement analytics, because as you know, any sort of bounce rate, time on site type metrics can be positive or negative. So as you say, a large bounce rate and a short time on site can actually mean that the visitor is finding what they need really quickly and really, really happy, Yeah, so I think, and that's something we're going to be really delving into in the Optimizer program, is looking at that engagement on mobile and what that actually means. Yeah, so thanks for raising that. So I'd like, as our final question today, I'd really like to ask you all what is next, because this is obviously a continuing journey. It's moving and changing. The Google algorithm I mentioned earlier, that's going to rank you higher if you have a mobile responsive site. All these things are happening daily. So what's next for each of you and your organisations in the area of mobile? Candice, what's on the agenda for you?
Well, next up for CMNZ in our mobile and tablet online world is really always, tweaking and perfecting the design. So, your site is a living, moving thing, and for us, it's important to continue to go back. It's not perfect. There is still, the odd thing that we would like to work better. So, continuing to work on that always, really, that's never ending. But really, for us, just to follow on from all the talk about engagement and analytics, this year is very much about focusing on the analytics and understanding what's happening with our audience and why it's happening, because that's kind of the hardest thing to delve into. We've seen the same trend in terms of bounce rates and time on the site with our mobile users. It's less time on the site in the last year that they're spending, and they're bouncing away quicker or more regularly, and we're hoping that it's for the good reasons, that they're finding what they need, but we want to know, see if we can find out for sure why that is. So this year for us is looking at the stats and trying to understand what's happening.
Great. Thanks, Candice. Analytics are really important to us all now. So, Stuart, how about you? What's on your plan for the next year, say?
Well, what's next for us on mobile is ensuring that we don't lose the momentum of moving from having a strategy to doing the work. And what we're increasingly finding that to achieve the level that we want to is partnering with organisations that understand our needs and help build the deliverables from strategy, such as our research and digital partners, Phoenix Research and JX Live. Again, the same, just to keep understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it and what we need to do. We still need to do some work on aligning our desktop and mobile services, look and feel. They're already very similar, but we still have some way to go on that. And then, for the whole thinking about making the experience as positive as possible, is moving to having our landing pages the best page for any user, through searching or looking at search engine optimization. The landing pages are there for the right reason. We want the experience to encourage searching and learning with the APO and not just clicking through because potentially they're lost. T-New, this is working through Tessitura at the back end of things, which is our purchase pathway. This isn't optimized at the moment for mobile, which isn't ideal and doesn't enhance the customer experience. And we know that we want to do this and we know that we need to do this, but this is just down to budget constraints. And then in the sort of, again, looking at how we can enhance the audience experience, we'd love to create a post-concert space where people can connect around the concert's shared experience. Somewhere that they can congregate and talk after the event, what we're sort of referring to as the digital post-concert drink, in the bus or on the cab or being, driven home as the passenger afterwards, commenting about what you've just heard or the following morning, so that we can keep the chatter going and keep the excitement going around the APO. And then just finally, I suppose, if I just look back at where we were 2 years ago with this and the fear of change in the organisation and the fear of digital, it's just supposed to saying is don't fear it, do it. It's not just doing the things that you need to do, but all the things that you learn in the process that add so much more to your arts organisation. And technology, it really is more accessible and learnable than it used to be, and the gateway really isn't too hard, and enjoy it as we are.
That's really encouraging, Stuart, for everyone who's facing all this, and I think the Auckland Philharmonia Orchestra are a really great example of how an organisation can be transformed by digital and to approach it really strategically. So, Megan, what's next on the agenda for you?
Well, in the area of mobile, I think it's safe to say that over the next few months we're going to be spending quite a lot of time in Google Analytics. That's a big goal for us, to continue to monitor our audiences, their behaviour, and then so that we can tailor our communications accordingly. And really for us it's trying to monitor those trends, and as I said before, in sourcing that engaging digital content, and that's really the key for us. We need that content in order to be able to engage with these audiences. And because we are such a small team, and unfortunately Jane couldn't be here today, because we are, just the two of us and just a couple more over at the main Taft office in this area, I think the key for us is actually continuing to upskill in this area and to stay on top of all of these changes. Technology is moving so fast and it's easy to get left behind. So I guess a key focus for us is our learning, our development, keeping up to date with all the changes that are happening and the growth in this area.
Thanks, Megan. And it's encouraging to see that even with a small team, you can make these changes, because I know a lot of other organisations are in similar boats, and many of them are even smaller. So it's great to hear how you've made changes without a massive resource behind you. So I think one thing that's really clear listening to your talk is the degree to which this trend is changing the way we need to think about our business and marketing practices. So it's about really understanding the analytics. It's about thinking of the user journey across these different platforms. It's about utilising partnerships, as you say, Stuart. So there's all sorts of different ways that we need to kind of rethink our processes in response to this trend. But it is all ultimately a positive in terms of our access to our audiences and that agility that has been mentioned. So that brings us to the end of our questions today. I really want to thank Candace, Stuart and Megan for their extreme generosity in sharing time and also experiences and observations, which I know will benefit many of us. So I'll just hand back to Helen to wrap up. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Vicky. I'd just like to end to say thank you all, and for me there were 4 key points. The first one is to research, and we encourage all of you listening and viewing today to consider the user journey, particularly via analytics. Secondly, test. Just because it works on desktop doesn't mean it works on mobile. Thirdly, consider the customer expectations. I think there's certainly a lot around the immediacy of being able to access our content online. People want engaging content now. And finally, prioritize. Make it a key objective to mobile optimize your own online communications. And therefore, I guess in summary, Google algorithms will prioritize you. So Thanks very much to Vicky and to all the panelists. If you have any questions or you'd like to pass on a question to the panelists or you'd like to know more about these Hangouts, feel free to email me, helen.bartle@creativenz.govt.nz. Meanwhile, the Hangout will be available immediately after this live broadcast on Creative New Zealand's YouTube channel, and we'll also send you the link. Join us for the next Hangout Facebook Initiatives on June the 25th at the same time, 10:30. But for now, hakite anō.